My parents are furious I bought a house for myself instead of my sister, who sided with my unfaithful ex. I am 34 years old, and I never imagined I would end up telling my story in a forum. But life has taken me down unexpected paths. Just 2 years ago, I had what I considered a decent existence. A stable job as a mechanic in a local garage, a rented house in an acceptable neighborhood, and, above all, my wife, whom I will call Jessica. We met in college. Although our relationship was not perfect, like all relationships, we had routines, inside jokes, and future plans that we believed were solid. However, my world fell apart the day I came home early to surprise her on our anniversary. Upon opening the bedroom door, I found a devastating scene. Jessica was in the middle of an intimate encounter with our neighbor, right in our bed. The expression on her face was not one of shame, but of annoyance, as if my appearance had been a mere interruption in her routine. That moment made it clear that our 6-year marriage had already lost strength long before that day. The following days were a succession of heated confrontations, half-hearted apologies, and nights sleeping on my friend Mike's couch, trying to keep my sanity. Jessica insisted that it was an isolated mistake, something that could be overcome, but I soon discovered text messages that proved a prolonged infidelity during almost our entire union, which showed that, in reality, the deception had been systematic. The divorce process was especially bitter. Jessica tried to keep everything, even the car I had bought before we met. Her lawyer, a guy with shark eyes, made me feel worthless, while mine seemed more interested in his lunch break than in defending my rights. As if the pain they inflicted on me was not enough, the betrayal extended to another member of my family, my sister Amber, 29 years old. I always believed we were very close. After all, I had supported her countless times, helping her financially, buying school supplies for her children, fixing her car, and even paying her rent in difficult times. However, instead of supporting me in my misfortune, she sided with Jessica. The reason? Jessica gave her gifts, new clothes, outings to exclusive restaurants, and even offered to take care of her children so she could go out on dates. The last straw was when Jessica promised to introduce her to a supposed wealthy friend of the man she was cheating on me with. The disappointment was complete. I clearly remember the phone call in which Amber, with a haughty tone, justified her position by stating that men do not understand what women need. It was at that moment that I understood I was completely alone. After hanging up and blocking her number, I made the determination to rebuild my life, even knowing that the road would be arduous. I gathered what little Jessica, through her lawyer, allowed me to keep and moved to what I can only describe as a tiny apartment. It was a tiny place, comparable to a shoebox, with an attached bathroom, a space to cook, watch television, and, sometimes, even sleep on a mattress that left much to be desired. That first night, sitting on that uncomfortable mattress, I wondered how my life had fallen so low in so little time. 6 months ago, I was enjoying stability, a life that I considered solid, and now I found myself in a miserable environment, with an unfaithful ex-wife roaming the neighborhood and a sister who had allied with her. The situation worsened when I saw the posts on Instagram. Jessica and Amber appeared together, happy, in restaurants and enjoying a life of luxury that I could not even afford. I even remembered a weekend at the beach, a trip we had dreamed of but had never been able to finance. Evidently, once I was out of the equation, money and opportunities came their way. My parents did not contribute much to my comfort either. They insisted that I should make concessions because, according to them, marriage involved commitments, without taking into account that my reality was having been cheated on repeatedly. Their insistence that I was exaggerating my feelings hurt me deeply. The breaking point came in the supermarket, about a month after I moved, while I was buying ramen and cheap coffee, my basic diet at that time. My sister appeared out of nowhere, with a forced smile and feigned concern, and commented, "God, you look terrible. Are you eating enough?" And without giving me a chance to reply, she launched into telling me how Jessica and her new boyfriend, yes, the same neighbor, had enjoyed an exquisite dinner at a high-end restaurant. In a condescending tone, she made it clear to me that, according to her, I should have been attentive to my wife's needs to avoid this fate, and even hinted that maybe I deserved to be cheated on. That conversation was the final straw. I left my groceries in the aisle and walked out without looking back. That same night, I made an irrevocable decision. I would no longer allow Jessica and Amber to make me feel guilty. I decided, no matter the cost, to rebuild my life from scratch, determined to achieve so much success that, at some point, they would be forced to recognize my achievements. From then on, my routine changed radically. I would get up at 5 in the morning, working out in the building's small gym, a simple treadmill, and some weights in a closet, and then arrive at the garage at 6:30 in the morning. I worked tirelessly, sometimes until late at night, on emergency repair cases. Then I would have a cheap meal and study until my eyes could no longer take it. Weekends were no different. I took extra jobs, repairing cars for cash, doing oil changes, replacing brake pads, and even alternators. Although the activity sometimes bordered on illegality, I needed every dollar to get by. At the garage, the manager, whom I will call Rick, began to entrust me with more and more responsibilities. First, he assigned me tasks such as ordering parts and attending to customers. Then he allowed me to manage schedules and even participate in hiring. In just 6 months, I found myself almost in charge of the place, while Rick just supervised from his office, playing cards. I remember that, on one occasion, while we were closing the garage, he said to me, "I have had this place for almost 30 years, and I have never seen anyone work as hard as you. What motivates you, kid?" I told him, "I am trying to buy a house." He nodded, with the assurance of someone who understands that this is a great goal, to have your own space, without a landlord to answer to, without the fear of rent increases. That validation, although simple, meant a lot to me, more than he probably imagined. In a world where many blamed me for feeling bad about the betrayal, for someone to say well done was truly enormous. The funny thing is that, despite working nonstop, I started to feel better. The constant activity kept me from dwelling on my misery, and seeing my bank account grow month after month gave me something to focus on, putting aside how miserable my life seemed. Do not get me wrong, there were still difficult days, times when, seeing a post from Jessica or Amber, rage would wash over me, and I would be tempted to throw my phone against the wall, or when a customer reminded me of Jessica, and the memories of her infidelity came back strongly. Even so, those episodes became less frequent over time. Online classes became a real challenge. Having been a mediocre student in high school, trying to learn accounting principles after a 12-hour shift repairing cars was almost brutal. I failed so badly on the first practice exam that my online tutor even called me to make sure I was okay. Still, I persevered. I studied during lunch, watched tutorial videos while waiting for parts to arrive, and reviewed flashcards before bed. Little by little, almost by force of effort and sacrifice, I began to understand the concepts. And the more I understood, the more I saw how Rick's business could be improved. He was still operating the old-fashioned way. Paper invoices, no real inventory system, and prices calculated based on hunches rather than concrete costs. One night, after closing the garage, I showed him a spreadsheet I had put together. In it, I analyzed the last 6 months of work, breaking down which services were the most profitable, which customers were regulars, and which suppliers offered us the best terms. It was something elementary that I had learned in my classes, but Rick's reaction was one of astonishment. "Where did you learn to do all this?" he asked, while reviewing my analysis. I answered, pointing to my online studies. "I take them at night." After a long silence, he uttered a phrase that completely changed my perspective. "I have been thinking about selling this place when I retire. I always imagined closing the business, but would you be interested in buying the company from me someday?" I could not believe what I was hearing. Would it be possible to become the owner of the garage? I replied with some disbelief. "Rick, I do not have that kind of money." With a carefree gesture, he assured me, "We could arrange a payment plan where you would progressively take over while I retire. I would rather sell to someone who really cares, and not to a corporation that would fire everyone and raise prices." For the first time in a long time, I felt that things could move towards something more than just survival. The possibility of building something of my own was underway, a future in which I would be in control. That same night, I got home and added a new goal to my list. Not just buying a house, but also acquiring the garage. I knew this would mean more time and work, but the idea of having my own business, being totally independent, was too appealing to pass up. A year after that constant struggle, the garage was thriving. Rick had practically appointed me manager, and since I started running operations, the business had increased by 30%. I saved every penny that was not going to pay rent or food. My social life practically disappeared, but I did not care because I had a plan. Meanwhile, rumors began to circulate about Jessica and Amber's situation. It was said that the man Jessica had cheated with had moved in with another woman just 2 months after our divorce, since, apparently, he was not looking for anything serious. In addition, the supposed sugar daddy that Jessica had promised to introduce Amber to turned out to be a broke guy, faking wealth to sneak into clubs. When Amber finally met him, he tried to get her to pay the bill at dinner. The outings, the shopping, the luxurious vacation stopped. Jessica had squandered much of her divorce money trying to impress a new boyfriend who eventually left her. And Amber, who had quit her job at the insurance company hoping to find a wealthy man, was struggling to find work again. I learned about all this through Mike, a friend of Jessica's cousin. Although I did not replicate it, it comforted me to see that karma seemed to be taking its toll. Noticing my dedication, Rick proposed an unexpected deal. Start the process for me to buy the business from him. You are already running it. Why not make it yours? He said. So, we devised a long-term payment plan that, added to my savings, finally allowed me to gather enough to make the down payment on a modest house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing luxurious, but it would be mine. As soon as I signed the deed, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Amber, who, having bought a new phone, wanted to reconnect, saying that she missed her brother and that family should stick together. I decided not to reply, too absorbed in planning my move. One Saturday, while I was at the garage until late, finishing a complicated engine rebuild, Rick appeared unusually, as he did not normally work on weekends. "Do not you take a day off?" he asked. I explained that I had nowhere else to be. He sat on the stool next to my workbench and, in a serious tone, said, "I wanted to tell you something. My wife and I are considering moving to Arizona. Her arthritis is getting worse, and the cold winters here do not help. The doctor says that a warmer climate would benefit her." I felt a knot in my stomach at the thought that, after all my effort, I might be about to lose the garage. "What will happen to the business?" I inquired in a controlled voice. With a look that denoted impatience, he said, "That is precisely what I want to talk about. I am ready to accelerate the sales plan. Instead of the 5-year agreement, we will do it in 2. You will take ownership at the end of the year. We will adjust the payment plan to your possibilities, and I will move west in search of sunshine." Still incredulous, I admitted, "I am not sure I have enough for that down payment, as I have invested almost everything in the house." Rick, without stopping, replied, "We will fix it. You have increased the business by 30% and the value of the place goes up with you at the helm. Maybe we will adjust the percentages. You will get a larger share of the profits, which will go towards your stake." We spent the next hour fine-tuning every detail, and when he left we already had the outline of an agreement that would make me the owner of Rick's Auto Repair by Christmas. Although the plan was not perfect and would require me to stretch my resources for a couple of years, the possibility of having my own business before my 35th birthday was completely worth the risk. When I closed the garage that night, my phone vibrated with another message from Amber. This time, with a less friendly tone. "Are you seriously going to ignore me after everything I did for you?" Very mature, brother. I could not help but laugh internally. Everything she had done, from criticizing me to my ex-wife to mocking my pain in my lowest moments, now seemed part of a past that, although complicated, drove me to move forward. I had barely finished drafting several angry replies, all deleted in the end, when I settled on a simple, "Busy, talk later." That intentionally ambiguous response prevented her from accusing me of ignoring her, but left the door open for later to mean, in practice, never. The truth is that I no longer had any interest in allowing Amber to be a part of my life again, especially since her meal ticket had ceased to exist. As soon as I arrived at my poor apartment when I returned that night, I looked at my surroundings, stacked boxes, cheap furniture, and a shabby atmosphere. But, for the first time in a long time, I felt a renewed pride. In just a few days I would move into my own house, and in a few months I would have my own business, all thanks to my individual effort, in contrast to those people who had always bet on my failure. However, perfection is unattainable. The next morning, I received a call from the real estate agent. The news was unexpected. The seller was trying to back out, claiming to have received a better offer. My stomach sank, but the agent assured me that the contract was ironclad, and that the closing would be delayed only a couple of weeks, while his lawyer clarified the situation. Annoyed, but not allowing this setback to stop me, I went ahead. 3 days before the move, there was an unexpected knock on my apartment door. I was not expecting visitors, and my few friends already knew that I was busy packing. When I opened it, I found Amber. She was no longer the confident woman who had mocked me in the garage a year ago. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes wrinkled, and on her face was that look of desperation she used to wear just before asking me for money. "Hi, will you let me in?" she greeted, trying to sound casual. I stood in the doorway, without taking a step inside, and asked in a dry voice, "What do you want?" Amber, with a forced laugh, tried to soften the atmosphere. "Cannot a sister simply visit her brother? It has been a long time since we have seen each other." "Almost a year," I reminded her, crossing my arms. "When you went to the store showing off Jessica's diamond bracelet." Her fake smile faded a bit. In an almost repentant tone, she said, "I have made mistakes. I was foolish. Jessica told me so many lies about you, and I believed her." "And where is Jessica now?" I asked incredulously. "We do not go out as much anymore. She is going through her own problems," she replied, looking down. I sighed and insisted again. "What do you want, Amber?" At that moment, her eyes fell on the stacked boxes behind me. "Are you moving?" she asked with a gleam of amazement. "Yes," I answered. "I bought a house. The closing was last week." Her eyes lit up as if I had offered her a winning lottery ticket. Quickly, she exclaimed, "That is incredible. How many bedrooms does it have?" I knew perfectly well where the conversation was going. In a measured tone, I replied, "3. "Perfect," she exclaimed with an energy that bordered on overflowing. "You see, I am in a complicated situation. The landlord is selling the building at the end of the month. We will have to evict. The kids and I have been looking for a place, but you know how exorbitant rent is these days." I remained silent, waiting for her to get to the point. Finally, she continued, "Maybe we could help each other. The kids and I could move in with you. We would not be a problem, and I would contribute to the bills once I get a new job. Besides, the kids would love to have their uncle around." Her suggestion left me cold. After everything I had been through, the betrayal, the mockery, the absolute disdain for my pain, how dare she think she could get a home without paying any price? Firmly, I said, "No." Her response changed immediately. Her eyes filled with tears as she insisted, "What do you mean, no? But the kids have nowhere else to go. We could end up in a shelter. Is that what you want to see? Your own nephew's homeless, because of your selfishness?" It was at that precise moment that I laughed. I did not yell or slam the door, just a bitter laugh at the obvious manipulation. In a broken voice, I snapped, "Where were you when Jessica was cheating on me behind my back? Where were you when I slept on Mike's couch? When I lost my house, my savings, my marriage? Oh, right. You were shopping with the woman who destroyed my life, laughing at me as if I were a loser." Her face turned pale. In a hesitant tone, she tried to justify herself. "That is not what I meant." As I tried to close the door, Amber put her foot in to stop it. "Please," she pleaded with genuine desperation. "Now I have nowhere to go. Mom and Dad will not help me. Jessica ignores me, and not even my friends will talk to me." Unable to help myself, I returned the irony. "That sounds like your problem." Finally, I moved her foot and closed the door. For 5 long minutes I heard her knocking and calling me, but I continued packing as if she were not there. After a while, she gave up and left. I thought that episode had ended the confrontation, but the next day my phone was flooded with messages and calls. They were not only from Amber. My parents had also heard the story she had told them, a version full of pity about how I refused to help her and the children in their time of need. My mother's voicemail was the epitome of classic family guilt. "I raised you better than this. Family helps family. I cannot believe you are letting your sister and those poor children suffer when you have a whole house to yourself. Do not you remember that during your divorce we barely supported you? Or that we even suggested you try to reconcile with Jessica, despite what she did? And we never did anything to help you in your crisis." My father's message was even more blunt. "Son, I am disappointed. A man must take care of his family. Your sister needs help, and you are in a position to give it to her. That is your responsibility as a brother." I had not heard from my father in months, and now he was accusing me of not being man enough for refusing to let my treacherous sister move into the house that cost me so much to get. I did not respond to any of them. I focused on finishing packing and coordinating with the moving company, having taken the day off from the garage just to prepare for my move, not wanting to waste it on family drama. A little later, a message arrived from Jessica, my ex-wife, the woman who cheated on me for most of our marriage, who thought she had the right to give her opinion. I know we are not on the best of terms, but I am worried about Amber and the children. They say you bought a spacious house, but you will not help them. That does not sound like the man I married. Please reconsider. The hypocrisy was so astonishing that I had to read the message twice before replying with a single line. The man you married no longer exists. You killed him. Do not contact me again. That same night, I blocked her number. The family messages took on a threatening tone. My mother claimed that she would be forced to intervene if I did not act correctly, and my father hinted that he would come and talk to me to straighten things out. Meanwhile, Amber suddenly went from pleading to hurling angry accusations, insisting that I had always been the selfish one. I do not care anymore, I told myself. Let them come, let them threaten. I will no longer be the doormat the family wipes their feet on. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from an unknown number. It turned out to be Jessica's mother, my former mother-in-law, who reproached me. I am very disappointed in how you are treating Amber. That is when I realized that they were using every person they thought had influence over me. The situation was pathetic, desperate, and, frankly, somewhat chilling as to how far they were willing to go. I decided to take action. I called the real estate agent to request that the closing date be brought forward, explaining that I had family problems and needed to move as soon as possible. Although he told me he would try, he could not promise anything. Then I contacted Rick, who was surprisingly understanding and even offered to let me stay at his house if the situation got complicated. I also talked to Mike, who had been my support during the divorce. He offered to help me finish packing and be present during the move, in case my family tried to show up to cause more trouble. His words reminded me, they only show up now because you are doing well. Where were they when you were sleeping on my couch? That solidarity, although it did not come from blood, comforted me. That same afternoon, the real estate agent gave me the good news. We could close the deal the next day. The seller finally accepted that he could not back out, and all the documentation was ready. This meant that I could move into my new house 48 hours ahead of schedule. I did not even tell my family about my change of plans. I preferred that they arrive at my old apartment and find it empty, while I, by then, would already be in my new house, with a security system installed and without leaving a trace of my current address. Moving day arrived, and I finally said goodbye to that miserable place forever. My new house, in many people's eyes, was not much, but to me it meant everything. That first night I spent sitting on the back porch, with a cold soda in my hand, looking at the stars and feeling like I could finally breathe again. I made a possible mistake. I uploaded a couple of pictures of my new home to Facebook. It was nothing ostentatious, just a simple post about new stage, new house. But I knew Amber would see it, as would my parents, and deep down I wanted them to. The reactions were immediate. Friends I had not spoken to in ages congratulated me. Several colleagues from the garage left their likes, and some former high school classmates commented that I was doing well. Soon after, the private messages began. My dad telling me how disappointed he was that I was showing off my success while your sister is in trouble. My mom accusing me of being needlessly cruel. And then Amber, she went dramatic with a very long post about how money changes people, without tagging me, but making it clear she was talking about me. I decided not to get involved in that drama. I focused on the garage. We were doing very well, and Rick, my partner, was considering retiring earlier than planned. We were coordinating how everything would be so that I could take over completely in less than a year. It was the first time since I discovered Jessica's infidelity that I felt genuinely happy. I was not only surviving, but moving forward, and I had achieved it all on my own. But of course my family was not going to leave me alone so easily. 3 days after moving, I received a call from my mom from a new number that I had not yet blocked. I answered without thinking, believing it could be a customer from the garage. "Hello. You finally answer," my mom blurted out with that mixture of relief and reproach so typical of her. "We have been looking for you for days." I sighed. "What do you want, Mom?" "What do I want?" "Well, for you to behave like the son I raised. Your sister and her children are about to become homeless, and you ignore their calls while living alone in a huge house." I had to laugh. "A huge house, Mom? It is a modest 3-bedroom house in a middle-class neighborhood. And it is not empty. I live there, you know." "What I mean?" she retorted with annoyance. You have space. They need space. It is that simple. Nothing is that simple, I reminded her. Where were all of you when Jessica cheated on me and left me broke? Who cared about me then? There was silence on the line. Then, in a softer tone, she said, that was different. And how was it different? I insisted. You are a man, she replied, as if that phrase explained everything. Men can take care of themselves. Amber has children. There it was again, the double standard by which my family had always measured things. I had to take care of everything, be strong, sacrifice myself, but Amber always received excuses and infinite support. Mom, I spoke slowly so as not to get upset. I worked 80 hours a week for 2 years to be able to afford this house. I took online courses after 12-hour shifts at the garage. I lived in an apartment where the bathroom ceiling leaked every time the upstairs neighbor showered. I did all that alone, without anyone's help, much less my family's. So no, Amber is not going to live here. She chose to side with Jessica when all this happened, and now she has to face the consequences. It was a mistake, my mom insisted. People make mistakes. Yes, I agreed. And sometimes those mistakes have consequences that cannot be remedied with a simple I am sorry. This is one of those cases. Are you going to punish the children too? They have done nothing wrong. Stooping to using my nephews to manipulate me seemed despicable. I loved those kids very much, although I had hardly seen them after my divorce. But I knew what would happen if Amber entered my house. She would never leave, and, sooner or later, I would end up supporting them. They have grandparents with a 4-bedroom house, I pointed out. Why do not they go with you? I noticed another uncomfortable silence. Your father and I are too old to deal with children running around. She excused herself. We need peace and quiet. Oh, right. They intended for my house to be their dumping ground for problems so they would not have to deal with them. Well, I need my peace and quiet too, I said. After what I have been through in the last 2 years, I think I have earned it. This is not over, she warned me before hanging up. She was right, it was not over. The next day, when I returned from the garage, I found Amber's car in my driveway. She was sitting on my porch with the kids, surrounded by suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. What is this supposed to be? I asked as I got out of the truck. We were evicted, she announced, raising her voice so the neighbors could hear. We have nowhere to go. The children looked confused and exhausted, and I felt sorry for them. But what Amber was doing was pure blackmail. My blood was boiling. Did you really think you could just show up here with all your stuff without asking? I said firmly. Will you let your own nephews be homeless? She retorted, using her children as shields. It was a dirty move, typical of her. Get in your car and leave, I ordered. Now. And if not, she challenged me. Are you going to call the police? On your own sister? With the children present? I took a deep breath before answering. Amber, I'm not going to let you manipulate me with this. Take the kids to mom and dad. They have space. They do not want to take us in, she admitted, lowering her voice a little. They say they are too old. Well, call Jessica, I said, not hiding my sarcasm. You two were inseparable, remember? That great friendship you had when you were on her side. Amber's face darkened. I do not talk to Jessica anymore, she confessed resentfully. What a surprise, I muttered. You are a jerk, she snapped angrily. You think you are so great just because you have a house now. Let us see how long your luck lasts, loser. No wonder Jessica was not faithful. Who would want someone so selfish and cold? Any hint of guilt I had left disappeared at that moment. That was the real Amber, the same one who mocked my pain, who chose Jessica over her own brother, and who now intended to use her children to put pressure on me. Off my property, I repeated in an icy voice. Or I call the police. She must have read in my eyes that I was not kidding, because she started picking up her bags. Let us go, children, she said dramatically. Your uncle does not want us. We will find a way to manage on our own as always. A week after that little stunt, I thought that everything would finally go back to normal. I had my house, my business, and my peace of mind. But people like Amber and Jessica do not leave without throwing the last desperate punch. I knew it, so I took my precautions. The morning after Amber's show, I went straight to the county clerk's office and filed for a restraining order against her. The process was easier than I imagined. I presented evidence that she had arrived with her things and the children, trying to force her stay at my house, and the police assured me that it was enough to legally protect me. An officer suggested I install cameras, in case Amber tried again. I did not hesitate. That same afternoon, I already had security devices covering every corner of my property, with motion alerts directly to my phone. Unfortunately, a few days later, something worse happened. Almost at midnight, when I returned from the garage, the porch light illuminated the silhouette of someone sitting on my steps. It took me a few seconds to recognize her. When she looked up Jessica, she looked very different, haggard, her hair a mess, and with an air of defeat I had never seen before. She seemed to have shrunk, as if life had finally crushed her. "Matt," she said my name in a weak voice. I did not know where else to go. I laughed at the absurdity. "That is not my problem," I replied, opening the door. "Please," she begged, jumping to her feet. "Just listen to me." I sighed. "What do you want to talk about, Jessica?" "About all the times you cheated on me. About how you ended up with my money after the divorce. About how you encouraged my sister to turn against me. Or about how that other guy left you hanging." I watched her swallow nervously. She rubbed her arms as if the cold was chilling her to the bone. "I have nothing left," she murmured, almost trembling. "He left overnight. I lost my job, my apartment. I am at my mom's house, and she is threatening to kick me out." "Sounds like karma," I said, ready to go in. She grabbed my arm desperately. "I did love you," she blurted out, holding back tears. "I know I messed up, but what we had was real at the time. Do not you miss what we had?" I looked at her for a long time before giving her a cold smile. I did not answer and closed the door in her face. I heard her crying on the porch for a minute until she finally left. I did not feel anything. She was just another person from my past trying to sneak back into my life. But my door was locked, and I would not open it again. Amber must have found out about Jessica's failed attempt because a couple of days later my parents showed up unannounced. I opened the door, and there they were. My mom with her arms crossed, and my dad with an annoyed expression. "We need to talk," she said, walking into the house as if she still had any right to do so. It did not take them long to give me the same old argument. "Your sister is in trouble," my dad began in a harsh tone. "She needs a place to stay. A good son would help her." "A good son," I repeated, letting out an incredulous laugh. "The same son you did not support when he lost everything? Where were you when they cheated on me and left me on the street?" My mother frowned. "That was different. You are a man. Amber has children, and I already told you to take them with you," I replied. "But I imagine your peace and quiet is more important, is not it? In the end, you always want me to be the responsible one, but only when it is convenient for you." My father stood up furiously. "You have become selfish. Money changed you. You are not the son we raised anymore." I nodded. "You are right. I am not the same son you raised. That guy let himself be stepped on. He would have felt guilty and would have taken care of a woman who betrayed him. That guy went out of his way for a family that never went out of their way for him." "I doubt," I said as I opened the door for them. They left without saying another word. I locked the door, took a deep breath, and stood there for a moment, taking it all in. I was no longer their son, and frankly, I did not care. I had my house, my own business, and a future I had built from scratch. Standing there in my home, with no one to put me down or manipulate me, I felt freer than ever before in my life.